welcome everybody. Very excited for the session on AI and AI agents in Amplitude. Today, I'll be running through the first part, and then my colleague Olivia will be taking over for some other live demos. It's a session I've been looking forward to since a while, and I've been also over the last months, we're always like, okay, is it now the right time? But then Amplitude keep releasing something new, so there's a lot happening. And I think it's an exciting moment to recap where currently Amplitude is at, what is currently possible. We're not going to talk too much about what Amplitude is going to release over the year. They have a couple sessions planned, I believe, next week, a week after. So that's going to be a great part to touch base from their side. So we're going to focus more on what is practical now and also take a bit of an independent stance, since we can speak openly about what we think about Amplitude and like the different features. We'll also take a bit of an unbiased take there. So that's our focus. Another thing I'll say is we will be obviously talking about Amplitude, but what I'm also keen is to draw some general themes here that we're seeing that are applicable for the space of analytics in the context of AI. So I'll also take some parallels there. And with that, yeah, let's jump in. So first off, maybe you guys don't know Adasight yet. We're a consultancy and service provider in the context of data analytics, experimentation, and insights. And obviously, that's all influenced also with AI. Nowadays, we have the luxury of having a front row seat effectively by working with many companies with Amplitude. So we're seeing what are the pain points and also what is working with AI, which kind of use cases are starting to build some traction. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're coming from. And of course, we wouldn't be a consultancy if we'd also not have here an offer for our session today. So Finn is going to drop that into chat. So if there is any angle you see relevant for your organization, we have packages there, and also we have a free workshop format there. So that's going to be the only salesy part. Otherwise, we'll focus purely on getting value for the topic. What we have planned and the theme we're going to go through. Why bother in the first place? Why we're talking about this right now? So again, talking about Amplitude, but also the general theme of the transformation we're seeing towards using more AI in the space. We'll talk about the overall, what is currently, what kind of features are we actually talking about? The specifics here. And then we will be diving into live demos. So we'll be showing in action how these things are looking like, where to find them in your org. So that's going to be this part. And then practical checklists, kind of like your to-do list if you do want to use more AI, both in Amplitude, but also I think transferable for other contexts, how to approach it. And then we'll make sure we have some Q&A at the end, time reserved. You can still at any point drop your questions into chat. So if something is immediately relevant for that, we'll try to pop that into the discussion. Otherwise, we'll have more open discussion at the end and reserve those for the end. Perfect. With that, let's jump in. So why are we talking about this? The general different stages that I've noticed, and also like the Amplitude positioning was always in the wording changed over time. Obviously, they started in product analytics, specifically mobile product analytics. That's where they come from. Was like early gaming adoption, where people were like, hey, we need really clean insights for these mobile apps. This over time transformed into, let's think about all digital touch points, and let's not only think about product teams, but also marketing teams, any kind of data points you want to bring in. Amplitude can help streamline that. And it was more of a generalist approach and optimizing anything that is in the space of digital. And now it's a big shift. We saw that starting, I would say, early last year. And now it's really becoming the central theme of being AI centered. That means having AI throughout the platform, having core workflows supported by AI within the platform, but also externally branching out into, for example, what are we going to go? I'm already going to be a little bit going into use cases. So also integrating with Claude, for example, you can go into your Slack, ask questions, and it's going to be more and more centered around AI. So that's a transformation I'm seeing with Amplitude, and I see also relevant for the wider analytics space. That it's not about like, okay, can we report, as we saw here in the very beginning, can we actually report on and get visibility on user behavior, versus then can we bring all data points together? Yes, that's solved. And now it's more about, okay, we can bring everything together, but we now have to use and be more AI assisted in all those, having all these data points together. So that's kind of the bigger theme I'm seeing. And we'll be going into the specifics now. So you probably, in the context of Amplitude, came across this chart. This is not us, that's from Amplitude. You see here, you have the data, the layer here of anything around data capture, data governance. Also, you would bring in here, anything around like bringing in data and bringing in inputs. You have the layer of product analytics. Again, that's the kind of the origin here, bringing in then marketing analytics as well. We saw that session replays and AI feedback was released. So you got the heat maps on the qualitative side. And then we have the action layer. So any taking action from any insights that you're taking, this might be launching an experiment, might be launching a guide or survey. So that's kind of where we're at with the platform. And now let's have a look at where we actually see AI coming in, or actually what are we talking about with the AI releases. So one, it's kind of like the name is chat. It changed quite a bit over time. You saw maybe Ask Amplitude, you saw AI Insights, various things. They're all now pulled together simply to chat. So you will see on chart level, you will see a little bubble popping up like, hey, chat about this. So you might ask a question on a chart. Maybe you ask openly, hey, I want to run this analysis. What can I do? Then it will create a chart for you. So it's like this catch-all interface that you will be seeing pop up. There's also AI agents. There's a lot. So there's, and we saw those, I think somewhere mid last year, they started popping up where you have a dashboard agent that can help you summarize things, or give you a weekly report on something. Maybe you have lots of session replays. Obviously, always a challenge. How many sessions can you go through realistically as a person? So you can have those summarized. You can have certain themes coming up. And then, other variants here, like as I mentioned, like they're coming up more and more. And I think Amplitude also noticed like, hey, this is getting a lot. So there's now the global agent. So this is where you can ask general questions and where you don't have to think about, is this now something for this or this agent, but you can just go to this global agent and that agent will coordinate what actually you need. So I'm thinking some like in parallel maybe to Claude, who's using it, like there's the concept of skills. So I can imagine that you will go into the global agent and then Amplitude will decide for you, okay, I'm going to activate now this agent because this is becoming relevant for that kind of use case. So it's more of a coordinating layer in between. So that's something that is there. And then as if that was not enough, we also have AI feedback. So you can bring in support tickets, Zendesk, various things that you have on your customer feedback. You can bring in there. You have AI context, which is going to be one of the things we're going to demo. You have MCPs, a lot to unpack there, which we can't go in depth today, but this is something that is there. And then we have AI visibility, where, for example, if people are searching for your brand, you can see how they're ranking. And I think the general takeaway I would advise here is not to try to remember all of these things, and also like even also go by the naming, because they likely will change. What I would say is think about the general theme we have. So also independent of Amplitude now, because I don't want to have this like be only Amplitude in the session. Think about it here on the side of chat. Analytics will become more and more conversational. So this is something I see popping up in various contexts that you can expect you can ask a question and you will get an answer based on chats, based on queries. So you can overall, you don't have to think about which kind of chart is most fitting for my analysis here, but you can actually just do this conversationally. So that's something I will expect to see more and more of in this year. And on the side of agents, the layer between data and analytics and acting on something is going to be more and more blended. So you will see that if you analyze something, you get to an insight, you already in the interface start ideating on how to take action from this, or even directly also take action through the interface that you tell the agent, hey, I want to launch this experiment, or I want to take this or this action. So that's something I think will be more common. And here on the bottom side, analytics is no longer simply data, and especially not only quantitative data. There's going to be more and more inputs coming that are in various formats. For example, we will see here in AI context, simply dropping PDFs into the platform. This can be your product's value proposition. This can be about your latest campaign that you've planned. This can be any OKRs you are thinking about. All this matters in the context of analytics and then optimizing towards things. So yeah, that's here on this front. And then let's look at how this ties back to our original slide here. So Amplitude kind of like sprinkled this into the platform. But one way I also find quite compelling is if we broaden this further. So as I mentioned here with Slack, for example, I see with the CMP, with the MCP, that you can integrate it in various tools. So you can, for example, query or like get insights or answer questions in Slack that is with Amplitude data. If you think this further, there's also use cases that you can work on an insight and then with Figma say, hey, with this insight, please create, based on my style guide, a first prototype or a first mock-up of this. Similarly, thinking further, Lovable, Claude, there's a lot of use cases right now that are kind of early where people are like, hey, we're discussing this in this Slack channel. Look at our code base, which is also connected, and create the first mock-up prototype. And then you can also add your Amplitude into it. But that's like a lot. And I think that's also where we will see that our ways of working are just fundamentally going to change, and which is currently also not quite clear yet how this is going to evolve. So for the purpose of our session, I just wanted to tease these kind of things, and maybe that's something for a deep dive in another session. I think one thing that is still holding true is the crawl, walk, run approach. If you try to run too fast or too early, you're gonna risk stumbling. So focusing on things that are clear right now, like the crawl approach, would be using chat, looking at where can you use AI for your day-to-day analysis. For example, how can you use AI to fix your taxonomy, any kind of feedbacks or alerts you can set, kind of thinking about more simple use cases, finding value from those before you then go into agents and then eventually go for those more advanced use cases that I briefly teased on. So that's, yeah, a lot to, yeah, that's what I wanted to go through here. For the live demos, we'll go through 3 ones, which are aligned with that crawl approach. We'll be looking at AI context. We will be going through chat and AI agents. And that's probably already a lot to cover in the time we have. And we also want to make sure we have some time for questions in the end. Perfect. AI context. So I'll swap screens here. One of the things which is nice to find is, actually I have one more slide here for that. Yeah, something that is nice, you will find most of, or even all of the AI features are currently available in all plans. So you don't have to worry about, hey, do I need this or that license type? And for the AI context, that's no different. So you can find in your settings, we'll navigate there in a moment, but you can find the option AI controls. And there you can add on org level. So for your overall Amplitude organization, you can add context, and on project level as well. You can add text, structured text, and you can drop any kind of files as well. into it. And some of the things to think about here would be what kind of like business context do you want the analysis to have? But also maybe what kind of analytics preferences do you have? So do you want to have reports in a certain way, structured in a certain way? Are there any business acronyms that you want Amplitude to pick up on? And also like any goals, maybe OKRs you're working towards or things that you're working towards with your team, all relevant context to add here. Great. With that, let's jump over. So we're here in a demo environment. You will find this in settings. So you can go to the top right here in settings, and then you find this section in AI controls. Something you can set here is like we're probably going to see more and more build out here. You see here the global agent is something that is now you can toggle on, toggle off, or make it specific. But in our context, we want to look at AI context. So you can see here there's a copy added. Something we actually have a video on this as well, where we go a bit more in depth. Maybe Finn, you can add that in chat as well, who wants to dive deeper. For many organizations, I think it's going to be the case they actually don't have this context yet. So what I did for us, I went and did a bit of back and forth with in my case with ChatGPT on what is there about Adasight, what are our goals, what's our personas, and I just added this here. And this is then on organizational level, but you can also be specific about the project itself that you want to be. If you have maybe multiple products running, different teams, or if you have a marketing website and then an in-app experience, you can be custom for this. So you can refine that further. And one thing I will say, I noticed that that's kind of the unbiased part, I would say, from Amplitude. It's very fast, actually, that it takes that up. So I was adding this here and then using it in chat in Amplitude, so in AI assistant, and it picked up languages and it picked up words that I added here. So from my side, I found it quite helpful, and I think something that is easy to overlook if you don't know about the feature, because it's actually pretty straightforward in setting it up. And on the files here, it's technically not AI context, but also you can drop in any files here that you want. So that's something you can add. It's from the naming, I want to say one thing. AI context is the feature, but if you're thinking about the wider term of like giving context to Amplitude, I would also think about session replays. I would also think about, for example, this AI feedback. So you see here all these things on the left side. So session replays is something you can implement and Amplitude will use. So the sessions will be recorded and Amplitude will be running through that and adding that context. As well as your AI feedback is something where you can bring in various contexts of your users. So you can actually add here different integrations, etc. So all this is actually valuable context you can add that Amplitude will be picking up, and which when you're running when you're running AI for whatever purposes you have, it's going to pick that up. So that's something I'll say there. And I think that was all from my side on this part. Yep. Perfect. Then, I'm kind of feeling like I'm rushing through it, but like I hope we'll have questions then on this and be able to clarify some things there. So with that, I'll pass over to you, Olivia.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you. So there are multiple features in Amplitude, but right now what I wanted to discuss is an example here is chat. They've changed the name multiple times. I think previously it was called Analyze with AI or Analyze Charts or something like that, but now they just make it very simple. It's chat. So let's look at some of the concepts and the use cases here. So you can use chats in multiple locations, right? So if you, let's say, build out a chart and you want to understand, oh, okay, what's going on? Why is there a spike or why is that a drop? You know, what's really going on? Tell me, or can you explain what the data looks like? You can definitely use chat there, and you can find it available easily within a dashboard. You can also explore data. So, for example, if you say, okay, I know that I have a conversion, and let's say I have an e-commerce platform, I want to look at, okay, what is my add to cart conversion rate, right? So, this is where chat basically will build up a dashboard, have a look at the time range that you want to look at, and then they'll create these charts for you and help you understand what the data is interpreting. Lastly, here, this is very cool. This is actually pretty new where you can ask chat to build a dashboard for you. So initially, when we do this, they weren't able to go so much in depth, but in this case now, they're able to do that. And bonus points, you can also ask them to like draft messages based on these findings too. So you can use it everywhere, as mentioned earlier. So you can find it here on the left side. That is also for, like chatting up and like just asking questions, or you can actually do based on the chart itself. There's one on the left side, there's one on the top here for asking questions, one on the bottom. And then also if you click on data point, you can also analyze with chat. Um, well, when you're using chat, some things that you should follow is that number one, it is really good for you to be able to reuse your thread. So you can also share that with your friends or your colleagues to figure out, hey, this is what my data looks like. This is what I found out so far. What do you think? You can basically do threads together. Um, I would recommend that you start broad before you go deep. So just ask like regular questions, the simple ones, before we dive deep into it. Because if you're very specific, it might take a very long time for chat to basically figure out what's going on. So let's go with the demo here. Um, in this case, right now, if you can see, I have a chart that is showcasing the number of visitors that is going into my platform. Here, I can ask them some questions. You'll notice here that on February 20th, there is a big spike. But for example, here, I'm going to ask them, okay, tell me what is going on with this chart. And then here, when I open it here, it tells me, okay, this is what I have from your chart here. Your traffic is not that high. You can see it's a little bit volatile. But then they'll notice here that on February 20th, for example, you do have a big spike. And then from there, actually, chat will give you some options to dive into. And this is where you can say, hey, what caused that, right? I want to know what happened there. So chat will try its best to basically gather all the data and try to figure out. In this case, for example, here it's telling me, during that date, you'll see a 20%, like 20 times increase because there are more US visitors. And then from here, you can ask it questions. Hey, where do you think it's coming from? In our case here, it's saying it's just coming from USA. It doesn't tell you where the traffic is coming from. But chat will dig deep into those to help you understand what is really going on. Um, and then whatever questions that you have there, you can definitely find them here on the left side. It keeps track of all of that, and this is what I mean by when we say let's work in threads. Um, Again, this is the same answer as we had earlier, but for example, here I have one specifically where I went to the chart itself and then I run deep insights. That does take a while, and then it gives you all these data where it says, hey, this is what's going on. This is my hypothesis. This is what I think is going on. These are all the impacts and what are the next steps. It helps you figure out what should I do next now that I know this. What kind of analysis should I do this? Should I do now? So it's really good when it comes to just trying to figure out if I don't know where to start, if I don't know where to begin, what should I do? Now, another thing that chat is really good at here is that it's able to look at conversions. So, as mentioned by Gregor earlier, if you put in all that context into AI and you tell them, oh, these are my most important conversions, these are the things that I want to look at, when you chat you can actually ask them things like, okay, can you help me build a chart to understand like my user conversions, right? So here, because you tell them that, okay, my conversions would be people from looking at their items to eventually adding to cart to eventually checking out, and then I want to know what is a complete purchase. It builds that out based on the context that you already have. It tells you step by step what's going on, and then you can also tell them, "Hey, show me what the trend is over time." Right? I want to see how that goes. It tells you in very much detail what is going on week per week. How is it increasing or how is it decreasing over time? Uh, you can do a deep dive there, and it will tell you, let's say by traffic sources, or what is changing around a certain time frame. Now, lastly, this is the one that I find really, really cool, is that I would tell chat, for example, here, hey, I have a meeting with my sales team, right? I have a meeting with my sales team. I also want to draft a message to let them know that I am inviting them to this call. So here, I want to tell them to build this chart. If you give it the right context, it will build out these charts for you. And these charts are actually quite good, where it tells you, okay, I know that you are going to look at sales. That means the event that we're going to look at is basically purchases, right? So it tells you, okay, these are all your purchases that you have here. This is based on the unique users, for example. But then it also looks at into those specific event categories. It tells me, okay, I know that you want to look at purchases. What kind of products are people buying from your e-commerce store, right? It also tells you, okay, from people looking at the items, how many people eventually convert it, right? Could complete a purchase. Where are these users coming from? So it can tell me, oh, these are, let's say, the advertisement that people go through before they enter your website and make purchases. So these are actually very good. And all you need to do is just tell them a little bit more, hey, I want to look at a deep dive into this one, and Amplitude itself will make those changes for you. And lastly, here, as mentioned earlier, I told them to create a Slack message. So it does give me a good Slack message here where it says, hey, I've scheduled a performance here. This is what we'll be reviewing. This is the data that we have so far. If you do want to drop in any questions, like hit me up. Um, so yeah, this is what we have so far with chat. I think it's very cool. This is very new. Everything is quite new. Any questions so far?
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Do you know if there's a nice way of synthesizing or like doing a summary of your chat to share it? Because I can believe that it's nice to like explore and start building a dashboard. But there in the thread, I think there will be a lot of questions. So to essentially have like the end product that I want to share with someone.
Yeah, you can actually just tell chat to give you a summary to share with your friends. So much like you creating a message here, just
Yeah.
tell them, like, hey, tell me, I want to send this over.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
That's a good job. Any more questions? If not, I can go to the next topic. Okay. Cool. So next topic is AI agents. Um, so before we go to AI agents, I wanted to discuss a little bit about AI feedback. So AI feedback is essentially a place where you can put in information that comes from your customers. So when we say information that comes from your customers, these are things such as your support tickets, your survey responses, right? Those data that came from Zendesk or Trustpilot. So you can actually sync those data back. And bonus, if your support ticket, let's say, can link to the user itself, basically Amplitude will be able to match those data together, right? So it will tell me based on Olivia's behavior, for example, and based on Olivia's surveys result, what is really going on, right? So if we go here um, to AI agents, now there is a new one, which is a customer feedback agent. So this is quite new. This is what you can use to analyze those data together. Um, yeah, but also for this purpose here, there are multiple AI agents. So we have the dashboard agents, we have the session replay, then the website conversion agent. Here, the great thing about AI agents is that they run regularly, right? So they're basically your workers in your background where they can give you like either on demand or regularly. You can actually set up where you can say, okay, I want this reporting that you are going to give me every weekly. Tell me what's going on. And then they can go ahead and email you or Slack you or actually just give you like an information and product here. So let's actually go to one. For our purpose here, I wanted to build a AI agents for my dashboard. So the first thing that you will need for sure is to create a marketing dashboard, right? Um, as Gregor mentioned, that AI context is very important. So when we build a dashboard, we want to do a few things. One, we either wanted to do based on a theme. So in this case, it's like marketing theme, or let's say you want to do it based on a KPI, based on a journey. So for example, if you are a new product and you want to do a sign up flow, right? Sign up to maybe, let's say, the first core event. That is where you will build your dashboard on, and make sure that you have all these contacts in. So for example, I put in, this is like something very simple, but obviously you'll need to put in a more detailed information to get better results. But you can say, hey, this is a marketing dashboard, this is to monitor X and Y. Our important metrics are, Z and X, whatever. So then you give them the right context in order for you to be able to do the analysis. So in our case here, we are going to build one. Go to the agents on the left side, and then you can do create an agent. And then for our case here, I'll choose dashboard agent, dashboard agents, and then I'll do marketing as a name here. And then the dashboard that I'm going to choose is the one that I created just now. So this is here a marketing dashboard. And then here, you can do your own prompts, but I personally like to use the starter prompts that they have, because it tells me what are all the things that I need to put in, right? So in this case, for example, I wanted to do a weekly business reporting, right? Weekly business marketing reporting. And then here it tells me, okay, this is the right prompt to write down. And then what you can do is you can change the values here. So you can say, hey, this is a week over week trend overviews. I want to have a look at all of these items. And then the primary stakeholder, for example, here would be the growth team, growth marketing team, for example, marketing team and growth team. And then you can also tell them like, okay, what is the most important thing that you want to look at? UTMs that generate the most purchases. And then you can also add things such as conversion rate from conversion rates. So if you put in all of this information, basically Amplitude agents will have a look into that and refer to that every time it gives you a report. Once that's done, when you create that, you can ask them to email it to you. So in this case, if you want email, then it already has my email. Or if, let's say, you want to connect via Slack, you can always do that. And then basically your AI agent will send you like a weekly Slack message. You can, make sure that I want to send it every week, for example. So in this case, we can do and say, okay, run this. And then while they're working on this, I actually already have an example. Give me one moment here. So this is my marketing agent based on the same dashboards. So here I had this question and I filled out everything here, which is why it says, okay, this is the most important thing that I want to look at, right? Most recent week versus prior week. And then what it does here is that it gives you the top takeaways. So Natalia, you mentioned earlier, hey, we were writing all these threads, right? I want the final takeaway. What should I do? So you can also use the AI agents, because if you give it the right context, it will give you the final summary, and it is repeatable every week. Here, this is what it looks like. It tells you, okay, these are your strongest checkout engine, these are the items that drives you the most conversions. But really, for example, here, direct has the most people coming in, right? But it only has like a 2.7% checkout rate, compared to like Instagram, where you have lower traffic, but like more checkout rate. And then afterwards, it has a look. It have a look at it. It looks at the charts one by one, and then it shows that to you. So it tells you, okay, these are the best conversion. This is what it looks like. Well, we're converting. And then also here, it gives you a hypothesis of why that is happening. And then tells you, okay, you can see here that this is the impact. There's a conversion gap between Instagram and direct. Maybe you want to maybe invest more on Instagram because they have better conversions compared to direct. I mean, we're not advertising on direct, but something to have a look at when you do this. It gives you a pretty detailed information here. And then I can ask it questions. So same as doing chat, we can also do it in threads too. And then it gives you a question there. And then it also tells you, okay, you should maybe do more analysis on this area or maybe do analysis on another area. And then this is where you can do those specific analysis, and then it actually does that comparison for you. So for example, here again, with the same flow, with the same funnels, I want to look at, okay, Instagram versus other mediums. How does that look like? You can see, okay, Instagram definitely has a better conversion. Look at all the other ones here. This is what that looks like. And then it also does a pretty good deep dive into that too. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So lastly, here is just for showing you guys. This is what Gregor mentioned earlier with AI visibility. You can actually see that under the marketing analytics. I will actually show you that right now. It's under here, marketing analytics and then AI visibility. It's loading, but basically it will tell you, for example, okay, I can see that my competitor mentions versus Amplistore, which is the store here in the demo data. You can see, okay, there's a lot of people mentioning Amplistore compared to Walmart. Obviously, this is not real data, so this is what that would look like. But later on, when you do have your own product, you can actually set it up, and it will tell you what is your SEO performance, right? Oh, it tells me these are my top topics visibility, my top cited sources. What does that look like? You can also look into the type of SEOs that people are prompting. So, for example, here, grocery delivery app and pickup. I want to know what that looks like, right? And then it tells you, okay, you are about 70% in visibility in this area. You know, these are all the topics that you might rank one of the highest. Any questions on that? No. Okay. So lastly here, I wanted to talk about best practices and caveats. So some things to basically note when you are using AI is to make sure that you don't treat it as an oracle, right? It doesn't really give you all the answers as you are basically better off using it as a way to like check your hypotheses, like cross check with your, and you also need to make sure that you need to cross check with your own knowledge. Because again, as much context that you give AI, you are the human, you are the product owner, you typically would probably know better, especially with your experience. Make sure that you want to prompt with business context. So you add benchmarks and then you add the audience and the product specific information, right? So this is our older demographic, for example, or like this is a high ticket item. I want to know what that's going on. And then start narrow, right? Something very either simple. So, you can focus your AI agents on specific dashboards or funnels, right? Again, with the specific topics, and then avoid to monitor everything. Sometimes when we have AI agents, and this is also new and also cool, we tend to go, okay, I want to look at everything. But rather, instead of doing that, let's do something that is more specific. That way, it will help you better. And then lastly here, make sure that you have a neutral organization for training notebooks, right? Not really like client data, and then also keep prompts and agents documented so they can be reused across team and clients. So as mentioned earlier, with chats, you can work together and collaborate. So that is very nice to have, nice feature to have. Any questions so far?
I think no questions. There are probably lots also like to, yeah, on the one side to take in and also like think in the actual context. I can share some, if Olivia on the next slide, if you want, oh yeah, if you want to bounce back, or I can also share just the key takeaways and to wrap up. Okay, I'll share one sec. So I think in summary here, just three main takeaways, and also to think about how to use it in action and how to think about it in your context. no pun intended. I think context is key. On providing that AI context, but also any inputs you think are
This is
relevant.
Business Breakdowns, powered by Microcap.
So any context that is relevant for the analysis, but also thinking about in which context you want to use AI and where, for example, which agent or which kind of question is relevant, and where AI can actually help. On the next slide, I would say expect change. Expect nothing of this is set in stone. The feature naming, how the agents work together, it's a very fast-moving space. And I know that also Amplitude is opting in their product strategy to rather release fast and iterate fast. So expect change, and in that context, be playful, explore, play around, be adventurous in a safe manner, of course. So also if you're dropping context into Amplitude, be mindful if your company is okay with that and the privacy policy is okay with that. So having a playful mindset, exploring, see which use cases work for you, which new ways of working stick. That's something I think is very helpful in exploring this dynamic space. I think we have one last sales slide here. So we do have these packages, which is on the one side the coaching and the workshop format, and then on the other side AI readiness, which is basically getting more hands-on as well on data auditing and making sure AI readiness is there. And we have the free audit as well. And with that, we'll go into Q&A with the risk of maybe not having any QA, but also any feedback or any thoughts, open discussion, everything is welcome.
So I
Hey,
have a
Gregor.
couple more
Oh,
questions. Okay, but go ahead.
no, you go ahead, please. I'll go next.
Cheers. No, that was actually now I am was trying to wrap my head around the dashboard, the specific agents, and providing the context, especially if you think about analyzing the dashboard. Do you know if the agents also goes through the context we add directly on the dashboard? Because you mentioned like under the title, you wrote something in there. I know I had a practice of writing like a couple of notes or takeaways above each of the charts in the dashboard. Would that also serve as a form of context that we could refer to for an agent? To even like phrasing the sentences or things like this? Or is it still better to use it inside of the actual context inside of the agent?
Yes, they do review those. So whatever you have in the AI context that Gregor mentions, it takes that into account, but also at the same time, it takes into account the items that you put into the charts. Sorry, and the dashboard itself. So the more context you have, you give them, the more they're like, oh, okay, I understand what this is now. I know what she's trying to look at. Maybe I'll do a deeper dive according to that items that you have there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I think Jack,
Hey,
then you're
Gregor.
up next.
Great to see you again.
Good to
It's
see you
been a
again.
while. How trustworthy is some of the AI analysis? Obviously, AI in general doesn't have like 100% reliability. With you and your clients, have you seen like what that percentage would be in terms of people being able to trust these insights? Like, do you need to go in and do a separate analysis with the actual data itself? Yeah, just curious about trust with this new AI capability.
Yeah, great question. My experience is the data itself is the benefit of working within a analytics platform, which has a lot of data governance already and where you can like backtrace things. So the data itself, I found no questions around that. I found sometimes the correlations that are being pulled and the interpretations of it are off. So we had one, was already a couple of months ago, but like there was a case where we looked at a funnel, looked at any kind of patterns we can see, and then Amplitude was like, hey, by the way, great experiment run on this, which was the winner, and then the stakeholders were like, well, we didn't run an experiment on this funnel. So these kind of things can happen, that like the dots are connected in not the right way, or like parallels are drawn that are actually not there. I think it's getting better now on the one side with context, that you can, for example, in this case, you could import your experimentation roadmap and have that context. On the other side, also, it's not a black box in like, okay, here, go with this interpretation, but you see the reasoning behind it. both on, you can now, I think it was like a couple of weeks back where it was released that you can now see the process behind it, also even which agent is triggered. So you can see that chain of thought behind, or the chain of however you want to call it, and you can see the charts itself as well. So I think on the level of trust, like to summarize, data is solid, and then you can backtrace like, are these actually the right ways to connect the different dots and the right way to interpret it? So yeah.
Yeah, there is some little bit of a connection that can be off or maybe not exactly right. And then my second question was around like implementing on top of like a Lovable or another tool that you're building with. Have you guys had any experience with that? I obviously know Amplitude pretty well from back in the day, but I realized I don't know the implementation side of as well. I wonder if you guys have any content or uh, best practices on how to implement Amplitude using like a prompt structure. It's something that I haven't seen online. Could be a really interesting place for you guys to drive some SEO. But have you guys done that before?
It's funny, with one of the next webinar ideas we're bouncing around was like Lovable plus Amplitude, how to use that, because obviously a lot of people are vibe coding, or like whatever the term is nowadays, with non-coding, and how to get analytics on it. So currently it's on the one side there's the classic way of having Amplitude run in the header of the website, so you can prompt or you kind of get that set up, whatever tool you're using. But I think another interesting area there is as well, what I mentioned earlier with the MCP, that you have something. It's gonna be probably hard without a visual, but like if you imagine the Claude interface, and then you have Amplitude connected, and then there you plug in all your other tools. For example, Lovable, maybe your GitHub, you have that running in Claude, and that's something I will say, still wrapping my head around all the use cases, but I think that's going to be a very interesting area to explore, because the apps effectively can interact with each other if you like. So within the guardrails, of course, you're giving it. So that would be, I think, something interesting where maybe you say, hey, Lovable, I want to run Amplitude. Here's the API keys in a secure way, and Amplitude implements it by itself together with auto capture from Amplitude. So various ways, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that it's weird that there aren't very many resources online about how to implement Amplitude into a Lovable project. And then obviously the more data you get in, the more messy it can be. And so that's kind of where I'm at with my Lovable project. So if you guys do have any content on that, that would be amazing.
We'll definitely bring that your way. I also know in Amplitude here they have an in-person event with Lovable, and where I'll also have to be the fly on the wall there on the different approaches, and probably put that into content. Yeah, it's a good point.
Great to see you.
Same. Nice. I think if there's no other questions or thoughts for now, we don't have to fill the full hour, of course, just for the sake of it. But also let us know if there are any follow-up questions from your side, or also we're very open to feedback. It's webinars is something we did more often last year, but we're planning to be more regular with this as well. So if you have any topics you'd love to go through, let us know, and any feedback. Love to, in the spirit of iteration, take those. So yeah, otherwise, thanks a lot for joining, and the interactions was fun, and yeah, hope to see you